Have you ever looked at your life and quietly asked yourself a question you were almost afraid to say out loud? Why am I still single? Maybe you have prayed about it. Maybe you have tried to meet someone. Maybe you have opened your heart more than once, only to watch another connection disappear. Perhaps you have watched friends get married, start families, build homes, and move forward while you seem to be standing in the same place. And sometimes, even when you are genuinely happy for them, there is a quiet question inside you. When will it be my turn? If you have ever asked that question, stay with me until the end of this message. Because your current season may not mean what you think it means. Being single does not automatically mean that something is wrong with you. It does not mean that you are unattractive. It does not mean that you are unworthy of love. And it certainly does not mean that God has forgotten you. Sometimes, a season of singleness becomes a place where you discover things about yourself that you could never have discovered while constantly searching for someone else. Perhaps the greatest lesson is this: you were never created to find your identity in another person. Before anyone chose you, before anyone loved you romantically, before anyone promised to stay, you already had value. Your life already had meaning. Your story already mattered. And perhaps this season is giving you the opportunity to remember that. So, if this message speaks to something you have been carrying silently, take a moment to breathe. You don't have to force an answer today. You don't have to compare your timeline with someone else's. And you don't have to panic because your life doesn't look the way you expected it to look by now. This may simply be a season of becoming. And sometimes becoming is quiet. Sometimes it looks like solitude. Sometimes it looks like unanswered questions. Sometimes it looks like doors closing. Sometimes it looks like relationships ending. And sometimes it looks like sitting alone at night, wondering whether your story will ever change. But a quiet season is still a season, and a hidden season can still contain tremendous growth. So today, we're going to explore why your singleness may be teaching you more than you realize. Not because every disappointment must automatically be interpreted as a supernatural message. Not because every person who walked away was secretly sent away by God. But because there are lessons hidden inside your experiences. And if you are willing to look closely, you may discover that some of the most painful chapters of your life have also been some of the most transformative. Before we continue, if you believe your life has a purpose beyond what you can currently see, write in the comments, "I trust the process." And if this message brings you encouragement, subscribe to Divine Light Messages and stay connected for more messages about faith, purpose, personal growth, and spiritual reflection. Now let's begin. Your singleness does not define your worth. Chosen one, the first thing you need to understand is that being single is a relationship status. It is not an identity. There is a difference. When you begin to define yourself by what you don't have, you can slowly forget everything you already possess. You may start thinking, "I am incomplete because I'm alone. Everyone else has someone. Maybe something is wrong with me. Maybe I'm not attractive enough. Maybe I'm too difficult to love. Maybe God has forgotten about me." But what if none of those thoughts are true? What if you have simply been looking at your life through the lens of comparison? Social media makes this even harder. You see engagement photos, wedding videos, couples traveling together, people announcing pregnancies, people celebrating anniversaries, and then you look at your own life. Suddenly, your quiet apartment feels emptier, your weekend feels longer, your unanswered messages feel more significant, and the silence becomes something you interpret as failure. But you must remember something. You are comparing your private reality to someone else's public presentation. You don't know what happens behind their photographs. You don't know their struggles. You don't know their fears. You don't know whether their relationship is healthy. And more importantly, their timeline was never supposed to become your measuring stick. Your life is not late because someone else's life moved faster. Your journey is not broken because someone else reached a milestone before you. There is no universal schedule for love. There is no universal schedule for marriage. There is no universal schedule for purpose. And there is certainly no universal schedule for becoming the person you are meant to become. So stop using somebody else's calendar to judge your own life. Your season of singleness can become a season of preparation. There is something powerful about having time to yourself. At first, you may hate it. You may want the silence to disappear. You may fill every empty moment with entertainment, conversations, dating apps, social media, or constant activity. But eventually, if you allow yourself to become comfortable with stillness, something begins to happen. You begin to hear yourself. You begin to recognize what you actually want, not what your family wants, not what society expects, not what your friends are doing, not what social media tells you should make you happy. You begin to ask deeper questions. What kind of person am I becoming? What kind of life do I actually want? What values matter to me? What kind of relationship would genuinely bring peace into my life? What behaviors will I no longer tolerate? What wounds still need healing? What have my previous relationships taught me? And perhaps most importantly, who am I when nobody is validating me? Those questions are uncomfortable, but they are valuable. Because if you enter a relationship without knowing yourself, you can easily lose yourself inside it. You can start changing your personality to keep someone interested. You can accept behavior you know is unhealthy because you are afraid of being alone. You can abandon your boundaries because you desperately want the relationship to work. You can confuse attention with love. You can confuse chemistry with compatibility. And you can mistake being wanted for being valued. Singleness gives you the opportunity to learn the difference. The lesson of self-worth. Chosen one, there is a version of you that may still believe, if someone chooses me, then I will finally know that I'm valuable. You must let that belief go. Someone choosing you does not create your value. Someone rejecting you does not destroy your value. Someone staying does not make you worthy. Someone leaving does not make you worthless. Your worth existed before the relationship, and it will remain after the relationship. This is one of the most important lessons you can learn before entering a serious partnership, because when you know your value, you stop begging people to recognize it. You stop chasing people who repeatedly show you that they don't want to participate. You stop turning rejection into an obsession. You stop asking, "What can I do to make them love me?" And you begin asking, "Is this relationship healthy for both of us?" That is maturity. You stop approaching love from desperation. You start approaching love from wholeness. And that changes everything. Why some relationships did not last. Let's talk about your past. Maybe there was someone you genuinely believed would remain in your life. You imagined a future. You made plans. You pictured birthdays, holidays, trips, perhaps even a family. Then suddenly, everything changed. The communication became different. The affection disappeared. Arguments became more frequent. Someone pulled away. Or perhaps you were the one who had to walk away. Whatever happened, you were left with questions. What went wrong? Why did I meet them if it wasn't going to last? Why did I become attached? Why did God allow me to experience this? You may never receive a perfect answer. and you don't need one to heal. Sometimes a relationship ends because two people are simply incompatible. Sometimes people grow in different directions. Sometimes there are unhealthy behaviors. Sometimes timing matters. Sometimes people make choices that hurt one another. And sometimes a relationship ends because it was never capable of becoming what you hoped it would become. But even when you cannot understand the reason, you can still learn from the experience. Perhaps the relationship taught you what you need. Perhaps it taught you what you don't need. Perhaps it showed you where your boundaries were weak. Perhaps it revealed wounds you had ignored. Perhaps it taught you to communicate. Perhaps it taught you to walk away from disrespect. Perhaps it showed you how deeply you are capable of loving. And perhaps the greatest lesson was learning that you can survive losing someone you thought you could never live without. That is growth. The danger of rushing into love. Chosen one, there is a temptation that becomes especially strong when you have been single for a long time. The temptation to accept the first person who gives you attention. Be careful. Loneliness can make ordinary attention feel extraordinary. Someone sends you a message every morning. They ask how your day was. They tell you that you're beautiful. They make you feel wanted. And suddenly, your mind begins building a future before you have even learned who that person really is. But attention is not character. Chemistry is not character. Words are not character. Promises are not character. Character is revealed through consistency. How does this person behave when they are frustrated? How do they treat people who cannot give them anything? How do they respond when you establish a boundary? Can they apologize? Can they communicate? Can they take responsibility? Do their actions match their words? Do they respect your faith, values, goals, and individuality? These questions matter. Because the goal isn't simply to find someone. The goal is to build something healthy with someone. And there is a tremendous difference. Perhaps God is teaching you discernment. For a person of faith, discernment is incredibly important. Not every open door is necessarily a good door. Not every opportunity deserves your attention. And not every person who enters your life deserves unlimited access to your heart. This does not mean you should become suspicious of everyone. It does not mean you should believe that every difficult person is secretly working against you. And it does not mean you should interpret every breakup as supernatural intervention. It means you should learn to observe. Slow down. Listen. Pay attention to patterns. Don't let attraction silence your wisdom. Don't allow loneliness to negotiate your standards. Don't allow fear of being alone to convince you to remain somewhere unhealthy. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is, "This is not right for me," and then walk away peacefully. Your solitude can teach you to hear yourself again. There may have been a time when you were constantly surrounded by people, friends, family, relationships, messages, notifications, conversations, opinions, noise, and perhaps you became so accustomed to external voices that you stopped hearing your own. Then suddenly, life became quieter. People disappeared. Plans changed. A relationship ended. Your social circle became smaller. At first, it felt like punishment. But slowly, you began to discover something. You could think again. You could pray again. You could dream again. You could create again. You could rest. You could read. You could develop a skill. You could work on your health. You could focus on your career. You could reconnect with your faith. You could become curious about the person you are becoming. This is why solitude does not have to be your enemy. Sometimes solitude is simply space. Space to reflect. Space to heal. space to rebuild, space to decide what comes next. But remember, solitude should not become permanent isolation. There is a difference between enjoying your own company and completely withdrawing from healthy relationships. You were created for meaningful connection, so use this season to build healthy connections, not to reject connection entirely. Build your life while you wait. One of the biggest mistakes people make during singleness is putting their entire life on pause. They say, "When I find someone, I'll travel. When I get married, I'll become happy. When I have a partner, I'll finally start living." Don't do that. Start living now. Take the trip. Learn the skill. Build the business. Improve your health. Reconnect with people you love. Serve your community. Create something. Read the book. Take the course. Develop your gifts. Strengthen your faith. Become financially responsible. Build emotional maturity. Do the things you keep postponing. Because your future relationship should become part of your life. It should not become the reason your life finally begins. You are alive now. Your purpose is unfolding now. Your opportunities exist now. And your growth matters now. The person you become matters. Maybe your biggest focus right now shouldn't be, "When will God send me someone?" Maybe the better question is, "Who am I becoming?" Because the quality of the life you build will be influenced by the quality of the person you become. If you become emotionally mature, you will recognize emotional immaturity more quickly. If you develop healthy boundaries, you will stop confusing boundaries with rejection. If you learn to communicate, you will expect communication. If you learn to respect yourself, you will stop negotiating with disrespect. If you heal from your past, you will be less likely to make someone in your future pay for the mistakes of someone from your past. This is why preparation matters. Not preparation to become perfect. You will never be perfect. Preparation means becoming more self-aware, more honest, more grounded, more responsible, more capable of giving and receiving healthy love. And perhaps your spiritual life will become deeper too. Instead of only praying, "God, please give me someone," your prayer may become, "God, help me become someone who can love wisely." That is a completely different prayer. When you feel like you are running out of time, chosen one, perhaps this is the part you need to hear most. You are not running out of time simply because you are single. I know the pressure can be real. You may have a certain age in mind. You may have imagined that by now you would be married. Perhaps your family asks questions. Perhaps relatives make comments. Perhaps friends joke about your relationship status. Perhaps you feel uncomfortable attending weddings alone. But don't allow external pressure to make internal decisions for you. A relationship entered because of fear can become a prison. A relationship entered because everyone else is doing it can become a burden. A relationship entered because you are terrified of being alone can make you lonelier than solitude ever did. So breathe. You don't have to force your story. You don't have to compete. You don't have to prove anything. And you don't have to settle simply because you are tired of waiting. Trust the process, but do not become passive. Trusting God does not mean sitting in your room waiting for a miracle while refusing to participate in your own life. Faith and action can exist together. Pray, but also meet people. Trust God, but also work on yourself. Believe in your future, but also make wise decisions. Hope for love, but also build a meaningful life. Be open, but keep your discernment. This balance matters. You don't need to chase love, but you don't need to hide from it either. You can remain open without becoming desperate. You can have standards without becoming bitter. You can enjoy solitude without rejecting companionship. You can trust God's timing while still taking responsible steps toward the life you desire. And what if your season changes? Perhaps one day you will meet someone. Perhaps you will build a beautiful relationship. Perhaps you will marry. Perhaps your story will look completely different from what you imagined. You don't know, and that's okay. The future does not need to be completely revealed for you to live today faithfully. Your responsibility is not to control tomorrow. Your responsibility is to live today with wisdom. So if love comes, welcome it wisely. If someone enters your life, observe their character. If a relationship develops, build it slowly. If something doesn't feel right, don't ignore it simply because you are afraid to start over. And if you remain single for longer than expected, don't turn that season into a declaration that your life has failed. Your life is bigger than your relationship status. You are not forgotten. Chosen one, perhaps you have spent years wondering, why me? Why does everyone else seem to have what I want? Why has my prayer taken so long? Today, I want you to ask a different question. What is this season giving me? Maybe it is giving you wisdom. Maybe it is giving you patience. Maybe it is giving you clarity. Maybe it is giving you healing. Maybe it is giving you discipline. Maybe it is giving you freedom from patterns that once controlled you. Maybe it is teaching you to love yourself properly. Maybe it is helping you discover your purpose. Maybe it is simply giving you time to become comfortable with who you are. You don't have to force a dramatic meaning onto every chapter. Sometimes the lesson is simply growth, and growth is enough. So stop looking at your singleness only through the question of what is missing. Look at what is being built. Look at what you are learning. Look at the strength you have developed. Look at the wisdom you didn't have 5 years ago. Look at the things you survived. Look at the person you are becoming. You are still here. That matters. A final message for you. Chosen one, if you have been single for a long time, I want you to release the shame. Release the comparison. Release the belief that you are behind. Release the idea that somebody else has to choose you before you can choose yourself. Your story is still unfolding, and you do not need to know the final chapter today. Maybe your next season will bring love. Maybe it will bring purpose. Maybe it will bring healing. Maybe it will bring a new career. Maybe it will bring new friendships. Maybe it will bring a deeper relationship with God. Maybe it will bring all of these things in ways you cannot predict. But whatever comes next, meet it as a person who knows their worth. Do not enter the future begging to be chosen. Enter the future knowing that you have something valuable to offer. Do not enter love looking for someone to complete you. Enter love ready to build with someone who respects the person you have become. Do not enter your next chapter carrying every wound from your last chapter. Heal, learn, grow, forgive where forgiveness is possible. Set boundaries where boundaries are necessary. And keep moving. Your singleness is not proof that you have been forgotten. Your waiting is not proof that your life has stopped. Your past is not proof that your future will look the same. You are allowed to begin again.